Good evening, everyone. Thank you to everyone for attending this meeting of the Overview and Scrutiny Performance Panel on the Thursday, the 27th of March 2025. My name is Councillor Roy Lees and I am chairing this meeting. When speaking, please do not obstruct your mouth to enable lip reading or the use of closed captions. We are not expecting a fire drill, so if the alarms sound, please exit the way you came in. Please ensure that all mobiles are switched off to silent or switched to silent. Please could we have a brief introductions around the room and then those, if anyone, on Teams. But first of all, apologies received from Councillor Deborah Platt and Councillor Russ Green, and also from Councillor Peter Wilson, the Executive Member for Resources, Councillor Adrian Lowe, the Executive Member, Customer, Street Scene and Environment. So if we could all just introduce yourself throughout the room, please.
Good evening, Councillor Michelle Brown, Committee Member and represent Clayton Western Curedon.
Councillor Pauline McGovern. Nothing else to say.
Councillor Arjun Singh.
Caroline Wolfenden, Director of Change and Delivery.
Alistair Bradley, Leader of Chorley Council.
Terry Howard, Councillor, Exec Member for Homes and Housing.
Councillor Alistair Morwood, Exec Member for Planning and Development.
Gail Wooden, I'm the Director of Property and Planning for Chorley Council.
Claire Gornall, Democratic Services Officer.
Thank you very much. Members are reminded that of their responsibility to declare any pecuniary interest in respect of matters of right contained this agenda. Does anyone have any interest to declare? No. Minutes of the last meeting held on Thursday, the 16th of January 2025, pages 3 to 4. Are there any issues to raise from the minutes of the last meeting? Councillor Brown.
Not directly about the minutes themselves, but more a follow-up. And apologies if I've missed any follow-ups from the last meeting, but I just wondered if we could have an update on the block of flats and the prohibition notice and whether that's actually being addressed now and the residents are back where they were.
Missed that actually.
So we can have a follow-up after the meeting, if that's okay. Thanks.
Do we have a proposer and seconder subject to amendment? A seconder? Thank you. Recommendation is to agree the minutes as an accurate record subject to the thing. Q3 Performance Monitoring Report, pages 5 to 26. Councillor Alistair Bradley, Executive Member for Economic Development and Public Services Reform, will present this report.
Thank you, Chair. And members have obviously had the report and can read it and point out their particular concerns. Obviously, I think the summary is that of the 19 projects, 95% Chair are on complete, and one is rated amber, which we'll go through later. And of the indicators, 93% of the corporate strategy measures are performing on or above target, or within the 5% threshold. And on the key organisational measures, 100% of those are performing on target or within that 5% threshold. So I think generally a good position. No credit to me whatsoever, all Peter Wilson's work, Chair, of course, for the record and the tape. The one corporate strategy indicator that we had was unavailable was around the percentage increase in visitor numbers to Chorley, which we get via a third party who does that for us through Visit Lancashire, and wasn't available at the time the report was put together. But since then we've had the actual update, and the numbers have shown an improvement from last year, which is good. So we've had more visitors to the town centre, not huge, but worth noting, and therefore that maintains the trajectory of Chorley as being a great place to visit. As they say, Chair, the best of Lancashire all in one place. Just thought I'd throw that in. Other highlights from the last quarter. Just to pick out some, home energy support scheme. We've done 21 community events, done 386 home visits, and over 9,000 small measures have been distributed this year. So there's a lot of work been done in that place. And those members of the Chorley and South Ribble Partnership had an update on that scheme quite recently. We provided about lots of holiday space and Christmas holiday activity and food programme work as well on the cost of living action plan. We've done over 374 jobs on the handy person scheme, and we are on target to deliver what of that we're supposed to do in the year. And we've also distributed quite a bit of work through the warm spaces across the borough, and £17,000 has been distributed through that network. I'm sure Gail will speak later about the local plan, so I'm not going to dwell on that. The bus station that we acquired fully from Lancashire County Council is well underway, and if you've been up there lately, you'll see all kinds of things happening: toilet refurbishments, redecoration, powder coating of seats and bins, and I think almost now the green wall and the redecoration that is going on the outside, the facades and what have you, and that is all going on at the moment. So I need to get that in the town, have a look myself where it's up to, but a big change going on up there. We launched the Destination Management Plan a few weeks ago at Park Hall. It's a business event at Park Hall, which is about getting Chorley known as being a visitor attraction and a place that people will visit. Not, as I said, on Radio Lancashire for 2 weeks, perhaps, Chair, but perhaps for the day trips and 2-day breaks, and therefore we're looking to get more people to visit Chorley and spend their money in Chorley. We've also held the careers event where over 420 local students and residents attended, and that featured 28 different employers and training providers. So we're doing our bit, and you'll see later an item around needs, which hopefully that is helping towards dealing with. Business engagements are going very well at the moment. We are racing towards the 31st of March when the first tranche of UK SPF money expires and has to be spent. So we are doing more grants and more business events and more support for businesses than we've ever done. And that will carry on because we've been told that we'll get the UK SPF money for another year, a bit less, but still helping us to keep the economy of Chorley moving. And the number of visits to council's leisure centres has also increased, Chair, compared to the same period as last year. So that's also heartening that people are keeping themselves healthy and hopefully gainfully employed as well. So there's some of the highlights. Just to repeat the two off-track projects, or one off-track project and one off-track indicator. The off-track project is the Amber Rated project, which is around housing standards across the borough, which is my colleague Councillor Howarth's fault. No, what it is due to, Terry, is the fact that the team have been working on reactive issues as opposed to developing the plan to raise housing standards across the borough, which has delayed things slightly. So they thought it was better to prioritise the reactive work. But it is coming back on track, and I understand through February we've sent out an initial 190 letters around to landlords, to get them to start to comply with the requirements and to get a gauge from them as to what they're doing. And obviously once we get the responses to those, we'll start to follow up around enforcement sanctions for non-compliance with our housing standards policy. So that is getting underway. So I would hope by the time you next meet, that will have been completed and signed off. The other item, the off-track indicator, is the one I referred to earlier around NEETs, which is young people, 17-year-olds who are not in education, employment or training. We have discussed this many, many times in this chamber and many, many times in group and council and everywhere else. It is higher than it should be, Chair. I'm just looking for the actual number, but it's off track by about 0.5% above our target. The target for me, though, is actually 0. So what we have done as a result of this number running higher, we want to understand two things. One is the number correct? Because it's given to us by Lancashire County Council, and we suspect some of the data might not be current. But also, if it is correct, what are those young people doing if they're not in those three things? And to do that, we've established a bit of a task force, is that the right word to use? A task force, a grouping to do this, which will involve Lancashire County Council, who aforementioned. It will include all the other people who operate in this space in the borough, DWP, youth zone, and all kinds of engagement units from education and training sector to target those young people who we would hope, if they are not in education, employment and training, have a very good reason for it and just are not failing to take advantage of the options that are out there. As I said before, we had the employability event, which was very well attended, and part of that probably was targeted at the next grouping of NEETs who will appear in September this year, because they will leave school and will suddenly come onto the system as well, because we want to make sure that there is plenty of opportunity out there for those that want to engage. And if they're not engaging, why? Is it because they've got caring duties? Is it because they have health issues or mental health issues? What is the reason that is preventing them from doing that? And we will keep doing that, and hopefully we can again report back some traction on that indicator at the next meeting. That's the summary, Chair. Is that sufficient, or does people want to ask any questions?
Thank you. Any questions? Yes, Councillor McGovern.
It's really just clarification, and it actually applies both to Appendix A and B on this agenda item 3, but also Appendix B on agenda item 4, and it's quite simple. I'm sure you can easily tell me what I can't see particularly from this. It's just that you've got some, so I'm looking at Appendix A, so I'm on page 21 of the report. And all I want to know is, you've got some indicators that are worse in the third quarter of this year compared to last year, and yet their performance is better than target. And that just gave me a confusion, because why are they better?
Because they are worse than they were last year,
Yeah.
but they are still above the target we set. So last year,
But why was the, but really the
target
query
not
is
raised? Because some of the measures, and I'm looking at one of the examples, is the percentage of household waste sent for reuse. Yeah, the target is 43%. We're currently doing 45.9, and last year we were doing 46.8.
What was the target last year?
The target last year was also, I think, 43%. I don't think that changed. I can...
So it's just that you're above. So with these, is the general assumption that they're above last year and this year? They're above what your target was? Is that why?
Yeah. Yeah. So the primary thing is to be above target. We set as a council targets for this council to achieve based on a number of things. One is how are we doing already, a benchmark. Yeah. Number 2 is an aspiration to get better, probably. Number 3 is also based on what we know is happening out there in the wider world. So we know at the moment, for example, on that item, there is a lot of turmoil around recycling. So in my view, too much stuff is not being recycled, because until County Council sorts out its disposal thing and reopens its reprocessing units, there's an awful lot of stuff that's going into landfill that shouldn't be going into landfill. So when that target was set, and I can't remember, I'm looking at Caroline here, we probably went for a more cautious target because we were conscious that across Lancashire we are suffering a downturn in the amount of recycling. Why we are now performing at 45.9, which is above target, which is down 0.9% since the same quarter last year. It will fluctuate over different quarters.
No, I got that, but wouldn't you, if you've more than met your target last year?
Yep.
Wouldn't the logical thing to be to increase that target for this year?
No, the target should be. In some areas we did. Some areas we increased the target. In some areas we stretched the target. In some areas we put an aspiration on the target. But in that particular area, whoever set that target, and we all set that target because you voted for it alongside myself, Councillor McGovern, I think you were here at last year's strategy setting meeting. No, you weren't actually. You were. Oh, you were. You were a new councillor then. Right. So we all set that target, and some of those targets were challenged, both within the Labour group and within the council, and they were amended as we went along. So the one, I think a famous one, is probably the long-term empty properties, because we discussed it ad infinitum, and that has been moved up and down at different times. But you have one eye to what you can deliver.
Putting something in the text to that effect, because there'll be other people like me that think this looks rather confusing.
Yes, we can put a note on the bottom as to how those figures are created.
Well,
that's fine.
that would make me happy.
Yes, and they are set by the whole council. So and some are massively more than target because of, for example, again, the number of business engagements by the council. The target was 450, we're currently at 646. The reason for that is solely the UK SPF and the way we spent that money through the year. Now, that will not repeat into next year because we'll have less money for next year. So will we increase that target to 700 or 800? Probably not. So I think we just need to explain the numbers. Thank you, Chair.
Any other questions? Yes, Councillor Brown.
Thank you. Really great progress right through the report, actually. So I think there's the officers, etc., need to be commended on that. It is really heartening to read it all, but I'm going to go back to the amber rated one just for a few other questions on that, if I can. So the 190 letters that have gone out, it does say in Q4 that the second letter will go out and that the inspections will start in February, just gone. So I'm just wondering if we've got a number on how many responses we were missing out of that 190 and how much work the team are going to have to do that from that second letter that's gone out and the inspections. And then in terms of the reactive work, the move to that, whether there's a risk to that in you know, what's been dropped by the team to be able to do that, and is there a risk that we need to consider here?
I haven't got the figure as to the ones that haven't responded, but I'm sure I can find that out for you, so I'll let you know that one. Going back to your original question before the meeting started almost, regarding the block of flats. That was one of the reactive properties that held everything back. Namely, a notice was actually posted. Now, a number of things have happened since then, is that the landlord has changed, and the new landlord is actually working very hard alongside the council, so much so that people have been moving back in, and that a few weeks ago it was hoped that this would actually be completed by period 4. Whether it will be, I can't swear to that, but that is the expectation as it was a week or two ago.
What I would say on top of that is the reactive stuff is by its nature reactive, so we had no foresight of some of it, but there's also a bit of a lag on some of these things, so therefore once you've cleared a tranche of reactive work, it tends to come in fits and starts just because of the nature of two things. One of the big issues at the moment is obviously damp and mould, which tends to be worse in the winter time, so therefore it's a seasonal issue. One of the other issues at the moment is as Terry said, sort of flats and HMOs and things like that, which we have to get involved in. We would hope that by doing this proactive work now, we can start to get upstream of some of that reactive work, which should also highlight probably further reactive work. So what's reactive and what's proactive, one's leading to the other, isn't it? So I think that's going to be the interesting bit for me.
Yeah, I was going to go on to that, and whether this gives you a bit of a baseline going forward to stop that being reactive and a bit more of a forward plan on it. From the 190, is that all of the issues that we've got, or how do we determine the 190? Is it from complaints from residents, or what are we missing, I guess, is what I'm asking.
This is all related to energy performance certificates, of which the minimum is E. They're actually working through more than 190. It's something that is going to be continuous. It's going to go on year by year. So it's an ongoing process. The 190 is what was considered a manageable figure for a period of time.
And obviously at the moment, the number of landlords is changing because a lot of landlords have retreated from the rented housing market, as you're probably aware, which is of course a concern actually, because it's leaving two things. It's leaving the ones who are quite good with the big RPHAs generally, and the ones who are very bad, who are the people who can't afford to extract themselves from the market. So what you're losing is that middle ground, in my view. But I think we've discussed at other meetings around landlords, so our landlords grouping and what have you. You tend to get engagement from the better landlords, not the worst landlords. So this is about driving us to where we need to spend our time and effort, I think, as much as anything else.
Yeah, absolutely.
Councillor Singh.
Just on agenda page 22, the overall employment rate, pleased to see that's gone up compared to last year. I think it's 12.9% it's gone up. What? Obviously it's good that it's gone up, but what have we done to push it up?
Sorry, which one's that? Sorry.
The overall employment rate on agenda page 22.
Number of claimants as a proportion of residents. Yeah.
No, the one above.
The overall employment rate.
Yeah.
Right. Again, it's an indicator that we use, but we're not totally in control of, are we? So what has happened to change that overall employment rate in this quarter, or from the trends from the quarters last year? We saw a big drop last year, which we couldn't explain, and therefore we've been doing extra work, I think, that's a way to try and understand those numbers. And I would say there's something of a return to the norm rather than anything we've specifically done. We have been doing, as I said before, on the particularly because of the UK SPF money, we've been doing an awful lot of business engagement, we've been doing a lot of business support, and therefore that will have created a number of new jobs. And there is one of the measures around the number of, or there used to be a measure that there was a number of jobs created by the council's interventions. But again, given some of the other economic indicators at the minute, and we've seen it yesterday in the autumn spring statement, sorry, the Chancellor's spring statement, there's a lot of noise from businesses, particularly hospitality industries, about the national insurance thing, which kicks in next week, and the extra charges on that, and how they think that's a block to employing particularly young people, particularly part-time people, because of the wage increases that are coming for those people. So I think it's a very turbulent picture. I think we are bucking the trend slightly, as you can see from the regional average. Chorley has often been above that, but at post-COVID, we definitely saw a drop-off in people returning into employment, and that was of concern. I think we're just seeing us moving back to more a normal picture, generally. But that's supported by the council interventions and also supported by a lot of business people who want to, in the nicest possible way, ignore the wider economic climate and just get on and do business. And some of the business events recently, we've seen that. We've seen a lot of companies who are thriving, but we also see a lot of nervousness around expanding at the moment, given the wider economic situation. So we'll keep doing everything, AJ, and I'm not quite sure which of those levers that we're pulling, a bit like the Chancellor yesterday, which levers you pull, depending on which actually have a response. So I can't point to one single thing.
But obviously what we're doing at the council, obviously is having an effect. It's having a positive
I would hope
effect
so.
to come to it.
It's one of those indicators that you don't know what would happen if you did nothing, which is terrible, isn't it? Because you know, if you did nothing, what would happen? You would hope it makes it better. Anecdotally, everybody says it's helping, but you would have to do nothing to see what happened. And I personally think that's a very dangerous road to go down.
It's good to see it coming back to normal, though. That's good. The other question, just a brief one. Town centre vacancy rate. That one. I don't know. Do you have a bit of an update on what's going on with the, on top of M&S?
Yes, we do. So the Escape building that unfortunately we had to take action to remove the tenant because they weren't paying the bills. We had contact from people before. It was no secret in Chorley that business was in trouble, and it was no secret because it had been reported through this council that we had arrears, we had etc. So people knew. Some people had already contacted us to say if that business space becomes empty, would you be interested in us operating in your town? People with their antenna out effectively. So there was people making contact before we took any action and precipitous action. We gave Escape as long as we thought we could. bearing in mind it was taxpayers, council taxpayers' money that we were not being paid effectively. Since we took the action, and obviously with the publicity, more people came forward, and at that point we decided to market it through a specific agent, property agent, aimed at that kind of market for leisure use, because I think as the council we want to see that continue with the leisure option rather than being another shop or another eating place or what have you. And therefore we did it. I think we had probably 10 expressions of interest roughly, of which we've pursued 6 seriously. They've reported back now, and we are progressing, I think, Gail, the top 2 of interest, so I would hope that we'd come forward shortly with some recommendations to council to have a new tenant.
Yeah, no, I think that's great. That's great that
Oh,
we've had a lot of
watch this.
interest.
Also,
so-
we did get feedback from the traders as well, that the traders in town wanted something that would still continue, particularly to be focused on family, leisure time, young people and young old people. Yeah, so get everybody together to keep that throughput of people into the town centre and not to become too niche, really. I think that's probably the best way of putting it.
No, because that will obviously impact the town centre, have a
Exactly.
good rate. So, no, that's good. Thank you.
We're going to slightly diverge from the norm. In the past, you get a director and an executive member, and they both are one and the same, and so it's normal for the exec member. But in this case, it's a bit of an exception in that Gail, as you can see from paragraph 7, there are 4 distinct areas which involve up to 4 executive members. So rather than me talking about or tossing a coin and deciding which one of us is going to do it, we could in fact sort of talk about 2 or 3 paragraphs and then pass it on and so on. And that, to me and in discussion with others, seemed a little silly. So in this particular case, it's a bit of an exception, and maybe it can be looked at as how these reports come to ONS. But so to make sense of it, as Gail has written this, and she wrote it in the expectation that she was presenting it, or she would have done it in sort of 4 different reports, which would have been here all night, I think, doing that. So with your permission, Chair, I thought it might be useful for Gail to present the report, and then, of course, the particular exec member can take any questions relating to their particular section.
That's okay. Right. Cheers, Gail.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Councillor Morwood. So yes, as Councillor Morwood's mentioned, this is a report that covers my Directorate of Property and Planning, which does cover 4 different executive members, 3 of whom are here tonight and 1 who sends his apologies. So I'm going to whiz through the report because I'm sure you've read it. So paragraph 6 onwards sets out the background and the structure of the team. It's quite a large directorate. We cover quite a lot of a variety of different elements, which is a joy for me to work on. I've been here for just over, I think, 14 months now, so I feel like I've finally understanding all of the elements that the teams work on. Paragraph 10 starts talking about the performance, and there are a couple of points there in relation to our local indicators. I'll come back to the reasons why those 2 local indicators at paragraph 13 are below target, the percentage of voids at Cotswold House and percentage of voids at on the commercial sites, because they're covered later in the report. Paragraph 13 onwards relates to the business plans. So there are 17 business plans across the 6 different services within the Directorate of Property and Planning. The 2 that are red and on hold, you can see at paragraph 13. One is in relation to the automated booking systems for operational assets. So these are our community centres particularly, and also some of our own assets, particularly the conference centre at South Ribble, in relation to how we manage the bookings of them. And that's caught in a process which is looking at booking systems at our leisure centres as well, and looking at making sure we get the right system across each of our different areas of service within the whole council that require bookings. I'm pleased to say we're getting quite close actually to that point where we can press ahead with the booking systems. At the moment, some of the community centres are booked via email, and some of it requires bonds to be paid for various different community centre usage and the repayment of bonds. So it's not perhaps as straightforward as it seems. The other one is the update of a validation list for the planning application process. That we're underway with actually, so that will be turning amber or green next time these reports come to. Paragraph 15 onwards talks about the financial position, and obviously happy to answer any questions that you've got there. Just a couple of points just to say that a couple of the recurring themes are around staffing and the use of agency staff to fill vacancies. The major projects point, which is the one where the largest variance of 557,000 appears, and particularly at paragraph 22 where we talk about the 418 forecast, is that point that Councillor Bradley and Councillor Singh were just discussing around bad debt provision in Chorley Town Centre, and that's been reported to members before. Paragraph 23, then we start coming into some of the corporate performance indicators that we've just looked at in the last item. So the table under paragraph 25 talk about those specific corporate strategy indicators that relate to the Directorate of Property and Planning, all doing well. You can see, well, all three of them doing well. And then paragraph 36 onwards is where we get into the corporate strategy project. So you see the delivery of the local plan, delighted to say that's now green, and also develop and deliver a plan to improve Chorley bus station. And I would echo what Councillor Bradley said about the bus station. If you have a chance to have a look at it, the new cladding and the green wall look really good, and the signs going up as well and nicely illuminated. What I wanted just to point out is that under paragraph 39, you can see there's our new corporate strategy projects. So for the coming year, so a nice variety of projects, most of which we're already underway with, and some of them will be familiar to you, I'm sure. And then the only other points I wanted just to raise was just in relation to the reasons for some of those local indicators being below target and also outside of the threshold. So, sorry, just to take you back to paragraph 33, the percentage of voids at Cotswold House is below target, but that's actually a positive news because it means that the number of people who require temporary accommodation is lower than we expect. So there is a lower number of people that are in need of that temporary accommodation, so there is a positive in there. The negative element comes from the financial return from Cotswold House. But what we've been able to do with Councillor Howarth's support is to actually offer those void units within Cotswold House to people in need from South Ribble Borough Council area. So then that helps us out from a financial perspective, obviously on the basis that if there is a Chorley family that's in need, then there's an arrangement where the void is remade void, vacated, so that Chorley need can be serviced. And then the other element where the local indicator is lower than we were hoping for is the reason for that is on paragraph 35, which is about the percentage of voids on some of the commercial sites, but excluding Market Walk, the Market and Digital Office Park. That's not because we're not doing lots of work. We are doing lots of work. It's just sometimes reflecting the process and the time it takes to get leases in place, to get those signed through 2 sets of solicitors, and to get people actually moving in. So that's that main report. What I just wanted to sort of draw your attention to then is that Appendix A, which I think is perhaps well, certainly in addition to the report. A lot of what the team does is regulatory, so doesn't necessarily have a corporate strategy or a corporate project to it. So I just thought it was helpful just to add a flavour of some of the kind of business as usual in inverted commas that we do. So there you can see some of the team and how the team is split across the various different services. And then just on agenda page 41, just a kind of highlights of the year. So some of that just picks up some additional elements. And then some slightly too small pictures, I do apologise for, on the remaining pages, but just about some of the other projects that the team have managed to do in the previous year. So that was all I wanted to say, and happy to, with supporting the executive members, answer any questions that you may have. Thank you.
Anybody have any questions? Yes, Councillor Brown.
Thank you for that. A really good report. I like the appendix, actually, even the smaller pictures, and really good progress again. When we go back to the financials, though, they're quite stark, aren't they? The percentage overspends. I know we've talked about the reduction to income related to mostly Market Walk, etc. But a lot of the overspends look like they're related to agency and staffing. And I think we have talked here previously about some of that, but I just wonder if there's any learning around that and whether there's anything to be done to reduce those agency costs, how they're being created. There are other things you can do with agencies to get those costs down where we haven't got the staffing. So I just wondered, and what we think 25-26 is going to look like with that.
So a couple of things in there. One is that where we've got a vacancy, we're actively recruiting. So I think, checking with the team yesterday, I think there's about 15 job adverts that are out or going out at the moment, trying to get some of those filled. Some areas are really difficult to fill. So planning, we know, is a challenge. So we have been, the whole planning profession nationally has become quite reliant on agency staff. Building control is another one, but it doesn't mean that we won't stop trying to recruit those into those positions. Some of it is also, as you were saying, about the kind of negotiation within agencies to make sure we reduce their costs, and we do that, particularly where we've had somebody in for, say, 3 months' time and it's an extension, actually take that opportunity to reduce the costs. And then the other thought is around, well, I suppose both of those things mean that I think in future we'll actually reduce our reliance on agency staff. The other area that we can do within projects and major projects is actually capitalise some of our staff time as well on those projects. So we are doing that to make sure that it is the external funding that we're getting in that's paying for the staff, which will obviously help to put these in rosier positions. So hopefully that's some reassurance, at least, that we are actively managing that.
Yes, thank you. This might be oversimplistic, though. Is there anything that we can do further around longer term sustainability, potentially growing our own apprenticeship levies, that kind of thing, to try and think sort of five years on so that we get out of that position?
Two things. I think it depends which of the streams we're talking about, and obviously, as everybody always says, it's my property and development portfolios that cause most of the problems, so I'll talk to that. Some of the core things, I think, planning and particularly building control and things like that, and some of Alan Core's assets, town centre team, we can do more of that, because that's going to be the same in some shape or form, probably for forever, moving forward. The problem a little bit with the construction side is we obviously are doing that with South Ribble as well. South Ribble have been on a major development build phase, but that's sort of coming towards an end. We sort of have peaks and troughs, so we have a bit of a lull, and now we're taking off again, particularly the town centre stuff, but that's all going to be built out within 18 months, 2 years. So I think putting a big standing team in now to deal with that is probably not the way forward. If you look at the size of the team under Adam Nixon now, 29 employees, that's probably the biggest we've ever had it, in my view, and therefore I personally would be loath to take more direct staff on, because in 18 months, what are they going to be doing is the question, and therefore, and you'll know yourself, coming from an industry where agency work is rife, construction particularly, it is, because you're working on a project to a fixed point. So it's how do we manage that? And I think we are increasing our standing team, but I think there's a tipping point where you don't want it too big, because what you don't want is a lot of people in 2 years' time who have nothing to do. And also we're seeing massive wage escalation, particularly in construction at the minute, and on the back again of housing numbers being increased yesterday and all the planning changes going on. I I don't think that's going to stop anytime soon. So one of the ways you can protect yourself from that huge wage inflation in the future is to keep paying the going rate at the time. So I think it's a balancing act, and I'm not sure we got it right. But going back to Councillor McGovern's point a long time ago about who sets the targets, were the targets correct is my view, because I think those targets were a little bit optimistic. And I will be arguing for those targets to maybe be a bit more realistic in next year for budget targets.
That was going to be my point about, so 33% over on that first one suggests maybe that there's just a bit more on the financial planning side that needs to cover that, to consider the you know, the pressures that are within that.
There's a big pressure to do a balanced budget. Again, you'll be an expert on this, Michelle. To do balanced budgets, isn't there? And therefore pretending that you're not going to have those costs is perhaps not the way to do it.
Mr. Morwood.
Just to quickly cover what you were saying about training our own, we have done that, enforcement officers. So because there's such a shortage, we train them up, and then the private sector, and they go. So so we have tried it, but it's not always successful.
Yeah, Councillor McGovern.
And 31, you've got 3 tables of budget, the original budget and the amended budget and the and what is called the variance. I've pointed out before, that isn't variance, that is difference. Variance is the average distance of data around a mean. So I would suggest that you don't use a statistical term when actually it's a simple difference. But what I would suggest, because I think that's just slipped through, and I think that you probably have a template, because obviously if you do a quarterly report, so it's just, so I've already mentioned this, and yes, we'll but just change the template and just call it difference.
I look forward to tomorrow at work where I tell Thames QS their competence variance isn't variance, it's a difference from the mean.
Sorry?
It's a difference from the mean.
It's the average distance from the mean of a range of data.
Come to work with me tomorrow,
Yeah,
and you tell them. Sorry, Chair, through you.
Sorry, in the finance tables, that is a standard accounting term as well. So we do use it in accounting.
You use it for difference?
Yes, we do.
Sorry.
that is what accountants do. Sorry, we probably don't understand that, but,
Yeah.
but it is standard.
Sorry, I'm only talking about from the statistical.
Councillor Singh, did you want to say anything?
Yes.
That tells me something.
Thank you for the report. Really happy with the report. The appendix, I think it's great. I love the appendix. Talks about everything. Just 2 quick questions on there. On page 43, the net zero business accreditation there. Great to see 6 local businesses. Are they in the town centre, these businesses, or are they? No.
Go on. Got too many people with the lights on.
They're a real mix, actually. So one of them is in the town centre. So the picture there is Reed's Refills, which is next to the post office around the corner. There was also GA Pet Foods one. So they are across the borough. I can get a list of those. And this is an ongoing business accreditation scheme that this was first year, so we want to kick off. So we're about to start promoting it for applicants. So it's not limited to the town centre, it could be anywhere in the borough. If that answers the question. Thank you.
So do we support them financially in order to get this?
No, there's no financial support. It's just a recognition of what they're already doing. And another one was Panache Cruises, which is one of our tenants at Strawberry Fields. So, I mean, it's not a million miles away from the town centre, but I can get you a list. No, there's no financial incentive to join this. it's an accreditation, it's something they can obviously display on their promotional material.
And this year's one was very much a tryout, because there was, and this came through the climate change working group, I think, didn't it, that there was an aspiration that businesses who were doing or wanted to do the right thing would get some recognition for it, and we discussed about, do we give them money? And I think actually it wasn't the money they wanted, it was about the recognition that they are doing it themselves. The question then is how we roll it out further. Do we just get more of the same, or do we change it to incentivise people to change and all that? And I think some of the feedback we've considered is about that, isn't it? Is where do we go with this now? Because in a way, some of the people who have won the awards to start with have been doing the right thing already. So back to that carrot and inducement. So we are thinking about how we do that, but that'll be done to the climate change working group. But it's been launched and it's been quite well received. But we thought we'd do it very small to start with.
No, it's good to see obviously 6 businesses who have taken it up. That's good, and obviously can only get better from there. Plus, it's nice to see the businesses pushing it themselves and going for it and aiming for it. The other point I just wanted to ask, well, not a point, just a quick question. On page 42, obviously the charges there, you talk about the ones on Flatiron, but what about the one on the car park opposite the town hall? When's that getting done? Outside, opposite Nigel Clare.
If you mean Clevedon Street, so that one's been decommissioned because of the works that will be going on at Clevedon Street car park to create the Civic Square. But we are looking at how we can encourage and where we can put more electric vehicle charging points. So the Flatiron was a trial, as you can see there, the money that we've generated already in that short period of time. And we are looking to roll them out across as many of the locations in the borough that make sense. So it could be some more of our town car parks, it could be other areas within the borough. So the conversation's happening at the moment in terms of that climate change working group to look at where else it makes sense to put some charging points in.
Yeah, I have one. Rent collected at Cotswold House, 96%. Well, what do we do with the people who are in Cotswold who are not providing the rent? Page 49.
49.
That one. So what happens to the other 4%? What do you do with people who don't pay the rent?
I'm just wondering, obviously the people in Cotswold House for one reason or another, but if obviously they're not paying rent, what do we do with them?
We don't throw them out.
Do we throw them out of a homeless place? Is that what you're saying?
Do they go into the next section? Homeless one might be.
I think I'm going to have to be a little creative on this one.
Don't tell
If
it.
there are arrears, it would tend to be people leaving unexpectedly, shall we say, with money owing. So effectively, we don't throw anyone out immediately for that problem.
Right.
However, if people do, shall we say, lapse in other ways, then social services are obviously referred to.
I think the problem, Chair, I really want to be 100%, but the nature of most of these people is that actually the money's coming from the government or from another agency.
Yes.
So chances are that money is locked up because somebody's, and when Terry says unexpectedly, I don't think he means they've just done a runner, it probably means they're dead. So it's getting that money from somebody who's expired from an agency. I think we're doing very well to get 96% personally. I think it, given the complexities of chasing that money, it's probably cost more to chase it than what we're talking about. So I'm sure we can push it up back towards the 88.5%. There's always going to be something stuck
I didn't
in the
know whether
system.
was somebody had headed over to Primrose Gardens instead.
No, this is Cotswold
102%.
support. This is. It is, but the money coming from Primrose is huge compared to the money coming out of Cotswold.
That's it. Anybody else know?
Yeah, the 102 is the same thing reversed.